In this video, we are going to be performing CRUD operation by creating addresses table for our user. We have to pay attention to this segment because we would be doing this over and over while using HiSend API. Whatever you are doing in a project would contain a lot of create, read, update, and delete operation. Let's get started. For the purpose of this video, we would have a new page which is our address.html, and in the dashboard I have a button which I'm going to add now. We have go to profile here currently, and we are going to add a button to go to address.html. Going there, it is currently blank. For the addresses, I have generated a form with ChatGPT so that we can be very fast. I will take us through the form. The form contains the form segment for adding and updating an address, and it contains another div segment for rendering an address. To bring live into this, I know you know what I will be doing next. To bring live into this, what I will be doing next is to introduce Axios in order to make API calls to HiSend API. Hello friend. Yeah, you know what I wanted. So here I have my Axios CDN integrated, and I have also prepared the script ahead because it's a long process, but I'll be taking us through the process as we proceed. The first thing we will be doing is to instantiate our variables, which are the address to get the list of all the addresses, the user to get the authenticated user, and the editing ID. This is useful for when you want to edit an address. Fetch user data. ChatGPT has knowledge of the project already, so it's helping us code faster. I'm not sure if this is in line with what I have, so let me just copy my existing code for this. The first thing we are doing is we are trying to get the authenticated user as we did in other pages. And once the authenticated user is successfully fetched, we are trying to get the list of addresses using the records API. The endpoint we are using can be found in the documentation. If we go to get table records, this is the documentation for the endpoint we are using. All you have to do is replace your project identifier, your table identifier, and your API key. At this point, we have to be adding the header to make sure that to tell the backend that this is an authenticated user. And we have a function to render the address into this div element. Let's go over to copy that function. We are going to be introducing Axios, and we are going to be writing the script to submit the form to the backend. So we'll be doing axios.post. Post is for creating a resource, and we'll be using our endpoint. To get the endpoint, I would go to the documentation under create table record, and I would copy this back to my code, and I'm going to replace the project identifier . And I'm going to replace the table identifier. So in this case, let's call our table user addresses. That's a good name. And we are going to be replacing the API key. So we can get the API key either from our code base, from the ones we've written before, or we go straight to our dashboard. But this is closer. Okay, good. And next we are going to be adding the payload. So for this case we have the address. So we have everything has an ID. So let's start with the address. Okay. And the last thing that we have to add here is the user ID, which we have not gotten at this point. So let's get our user from the backend. Let's create username somewhere here so that we can see the current user on the page. Okay, I think we have it introduced by here. So we've introduced our username, and I think we are good. So since we've done this and we'll be needing this later, we can't be running this every time. We need to make it a function. So const submit form is equals to okay, so we've made it a function. We are going to add the .then and .catch, and most important, we have to add the authorization header. Adding all these prerequisites would ensure that when we call the submit form, we are going to be able to submit it successfully. And the next thing we have to do is to bind to the form element to actually do the submit. So we are binding to the form element ID and we are adding submit event listener. We are preventing the default, that is, we don't want the page to reload, and we are doing the form submit. So another thing that we would have to do, but let us submit it successfully, is to keep the list of addresses. So let's see if we're able to submit successfully with what we've implemented. Let's refresh the page and we have the username here, so that means we've gotten the user successfully. Let's inspect and let's go to the network tab to see the network request that is sent out. So I'm doing Lagos, Ikeja, Lagos. I'm using this and I'm doing one to Nigeria for the country. I'm clicking on add address and it's giving me a 422. On a normal day we should undo this 422 error. Let's go back to our code base and let's see what it looks like. So we say axios.post then .catch. So let's alert error.response.data.message. Whenever you are chaining like this, it is always recommended to use optional chaining to ensure you are not running into unnecessary error. I'm using this data structure because I know this is what is coming from the backend. Let's refresh the page and let's fill this with any dummy data real quick. I'm using undo this time around. And it says project not found. So that means from our backend, our project ID is not properly added in the front end. So I'm going back to the endpoint and I missed the last P. So let's do that and let's quickly fill our form again. I'm not skipping the box part for us to know that box is part of development. We have to go over the box in order to have a working solution. And we have 200. That means this has successfully been sent to our backend. Let's confirm from our table. If I refresh, I should have the new page, which is automatically created for us. And looking inside it, I have the data. The next thing for us is to undo post submission cases, like showing the user that the form is correctly submitted and resetting the form. Once we are able to do that successfully, we are done with the first stage, and the next stage will be dealing with fetching the data from the backend. So in the .then, here I'm removing this and I'm alerting address added successfully, and I'm doing document.getElementById form and I'm resetting it, because once it's successful we don't have to see the data again. I'm filling it real quick and I'm clicking submit and I see the notification and the form is reset. At this stage, we have successfully performed the first operation in the CRUD operation, which is the create operation. Next, we'll be reading all the data.